Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm going to review Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. This is Zen Cho's latest novel that came out earlier in 2021 and it is a standalone contemporary fantasy. This was one of my most anticipated books of 2021 and it did not disappoint. The story opens with a young woman named Jess and her parents who have recently moved back to Malaysia. They had immigrated to the US when Jess was very young, but recent events have changed their situation. Her father lost his job and then battled cancer, so Jess's parents have lost everything, and they decide to return to Malaysia and live with relatives to start over. And then Jess discovers she's being possessed by the ghost of her ama, or grandmother, who died recently. Jess didn't know her while she was alive, so why is Ama possessing her? What does she want? It turns out that Ama was a medium for a local god known as the Blackwater Sister, whose shrine is slated to be destroyed by a wealthy property developer. So Jess has to help Ama stop the fifth richest man in Malaysia, who is probably also a gangster. There is definitely more going on than that. There are very important things that Ama and Jess's other relatives haven't told her about. And once Jess is in the grasp of the Blackwater Sister, will she ever be able to return to a normal life? Now, the complicating factor in an already tricky situation is that Jess is gay and she isn't out. She's in a secret long-distance relationship with her girlfriend Sharanya, and she's torn between, being the dutiful daughter, staying with her parents and helping them out to get back on their feet, or moving ahead with her own life goals to move, get a job, and be able to live with her girlfriend. The parts of the story that really resonated with me were what's going on with Jess and her parents. It's really refreshing to see an adult character with her parents, and this is something I can relate to even across the cultural differences. For example, Jess knows now that she has problems her parents don't have the answers to. She has problems that her parents wouldn't even understand. There's that moment when you go from thinking your parents are all-powerful and all-knowing to suddenly being old enough to realize that they aren't. They're pretending just like you are. Also, there are some moments when Jess sees her parents in a new light or in a new way in Malaysia versus when they were in the US. She realizes that she doesn't know everything about them. She doesn't know who they were before, and she's not sure she can predict exactly what they're going to do next, which is, pretty anxiety inducing for somebody who thought she knew what was going on before. If your family has always been the bedrock of your life and your values, and you thought you could always rely on that, then going through a really shaky time when you thought you were going to lose your parents or realizing that they can't be your safety net anymore, that is terrifying. I think Jess has a really good journey in this story. She gets a lot of development and comes out the other end having learned some things about herself and what she's willing to do to get the things that she wants. There's nothing more satisfying, in my opinion, than when a character is picked because they are perceived as being ignorant and weak enough to be manipulated, and then turning around and proving the bullies wrong. There are obviously different kinds of strength, and I think that you can really see the differences in strength in the different motivations that Ama and Jess have in dealing with the Blackwater Sister and letting the god in. I think comparing those to their histories and the choices that they make is really interesting. I particularly find that there's a moment in the book when Jess chooses to do something that I think is relatively compassionate, and I realized I could not even think of Ama even noticing this thing and doing that. They come from completely different backgrounds and are always going to make different choices, but they're both strong in different ways. I also like that this story builds up to this message about, in order to be reborn, you must first die, even if it just means symbolically dying. Because yeah, sometimes you have to do the terrifying and difficult and possibly destructive thing so that you can move on to the next better version of yourself. The other thing I want to touch on about this book that I really enjoyed are the supernatural elements and the setting. I don't often find myself loving fantasy set in the modern day. Even a lot of the urban fantasy that I have read and enjoyed tends to come across as more historical rather than modern, like 21st century. So I was a bit surprised at how much I enjoyed this because of the modern setting. But I think the key here is that Zen Cho has done something very fresh in this genre. She's taken the story and set it in Malaysia, where the culture, the society, and the beliefs are just incredibly different from what you're gonna find in typical, urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy set in North America and Europe. I'm pretty sure that this story is actually rooted in the real beliefs and behaviors of people who live in Malaysia. And so there's already this very real, natural blend of the supernatural, these beliefs in the gods and local deities and such, and the modern world and modern ways of living. So Zen Cho doesn't have to take a huge leap to push that into fictional territory. The melding of it is already there. In my opinion, this book has everything. It is elegantly written, it has a compulsive, almost thriller-like plot, a fresh and unusual setting for a lot of fans of the fantasy genre. It's got lots of Asian family dynamics, and a really good journey for a young queer woman trying to come into her own. I absolutely love this, and I would highly recommend it to just about everybody. That is it from me today. If you have read Blackwater Sister, do let me know what you thought of it. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back to talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.